Hi, this is Abe Whistling. That ain't tells like a TIL. If you like my video, please give a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Topic I'm going to talk to you today about is the Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 16, episode 19, reunion part 2. The reunion picked off where it left off, where Angela was showing her evidence and proof that Phaedra was the one who uh who brought the man to her event and stuff like that. And so Andy asked Angela, he said, do you really think that Phaedra would do something like that to you? Do you really think that? She said, yeah, I believe it because the man told me that it was Phaedra and Phaedra paid him. And then uh, and then Porsha chimed in and said, well, anybody tell you anything, and would you believe it? And Andy said, yeah, the man, the man probably did say anything. He probably was looking for stuff. And then Phaedra said, I don't even know that man. And I don't know why you think I would do that to you, Angela. I don't even know you like that. And then and the answer said, Phaedra, you've been coming at me you've been coming at me the whole time that you've been, the whole time you've been here, the little time that you were here, and stuff like that. And she said, cause you said something about, yeah, like I said, I look older than I do, and then you also said some other stuff, and she was saying, I was just shady, I was just being shady, I was just being joking and stuff like that. And then Portia said, I heard behind the scenes that you said that you gonna come down on Phaedra, you gonna come down on Phaedra hard. She said, I didn't say that. She said, people were telling me that Phaedra's gonna do the same thing to me. And so Andy chimed in and said, hold up, wait a minute. He said, Angela, what proof or what evidence you have that this guy really said this? I got proof right here. She came out with a folder, and here come Portia. Ooh, she got a folder. And yeah, he said, look, what's this? And he said, this is the guy that said he knows this lady named Kim, and Kim knows Phaedra's brother. And then and Andy looked at the stuff, Portia looked at the stuff, and then Andy said, well, pass it to Portia. I mean, he said, told Portia, pass it to Phaedra. Phaedra looked at Pastor. Do you know anybody from these texts? Do you know these pictures? Peggy said, yeah, this is my brother. I know my brother right here, but I don't know nothing about this Kim one. And it's a lot of people went to school with me and my brother and stuff, and we were children. That don't mean we know the people. And so and so Angela said, well, who else could have done it? Who else could have done it? And then and asked the lady, he said, do y'all think that Phaedra did that? TL said, no, I don't think Phaedra did it. I don't know. Shamea said, I know Phaedra didn't do it. I know Phaedra didn't do it. And Porsche said, I know Phaedra didn't do it either. And Anne said, Drew, what about you? Do you think Phaedra did it? You was there with Angela and y'all investigated the man. She said, yeah, we did go investigate the man. She said, when we talked to the man, the man was so afraid and scared. He was scared to talk to us and stuff. We had to kind of wrangle the stuff out of him. And so like he said, I'm asking you, do you think that Phaedra did it? She said, well, I don't know who did it, but he said Phaedra did it. He said, oh, that's your answer. She said, yeah, that's my answer. And then so Andy said, are you sure you believe this? And they kept going back and forth. And then Ray said, Andy, give me my phone. Give me my phone. And give me a phone. So then phone said, I'm going to call my brother right now. She called her brother. He said, hey, hello, how you doing? She said, this is your sister, Phaedra. And she said, I'm at the reunion. And I'm just letting you know you're being recorded. He said, okay, you mind? He said, uh, did you know this woman named Kim and you went to school with her and she got a friend that came on the show and said he knew you and stuff? He said, huh, Kim? He said, yeah, I know somebody named Kim. He said, they said you went to school with her. He said, nah, Kim is my Facebook friend. That don't mean I know I went to school with her. And Andy said, huh, what? Tell me to say that again. And she said, what did you say? You said that Kim lady, you don't know her, she's your Facebook friend. He said, yeah. And then so they hung up the phone. And then so she said, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. See and stuff. And then Andy said, yeah, somebody's your Facebook friend. You don't really don't know him, do you? Porsche said, you showed down because there's a whole lot of people follow me. I don't know nothing about and stuff like that. And they got talking about it. And then they said, well, Angela, now that you believe that it's not Phaedra, Angela said, well, I have to, since Phaedra said it wasn't her, but I don't know who it is. And then Andy said, well, some of the fans on Twitter, Twitterverse, some of the fans on Twitter believe that you did it. And she said, Andy, why would I want to do that to my marriage? Why would I want to upset my marriage and my husband, my family like that? I did not do that. And then so Andy said, Judy, you think Angela did that? She said, no, I don't think Angela did that at all. And then so Porsche chimed in and said, Angela did that. That was a shame a reference what Candy's Aunt Bertha said. That was a shame that Toy put up with the BS. All Porsche said it was a shame. And then so and then so, and then so, Faith said, like I told you, I didn't do that. And stuff like that. She said, do you think I would do that? She said, after your mama passed, I was one of the people who genuinely called you and let you know that I was concerned about you and stuff like that. And Andrew said, well, you did do that. And then, Portia said, well, all of the women did it. Shamea said, yeah, well, I did too. And then she got to crying. And then Andy said, oh, we so sorry, we so sorry. She said, Andy, what it was? My mom wanted me to come on this. She said, I missed my mom first. She said, and my mom wanted me to come on this platform with me because we were going to discuss her bipolar issues and how she got over it. And I was saying, Angela, they have medication and stuff to help people with bipolarness, but I've never heard nobody say they got over being bipolar. But anyway, all this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think the producers told Angela to come at Phaedra a certain way, so Phaedra can have a little storyline, so she can have something to discuss at the reunion and stuff like that. So, like I said, I never when this story first came out on the internet, a whole lot of people going back and forth. Some people said they thought it was Phaedra because she always lied of what she did to Candy. Some people said that now it probably was Angela. Seemed like Angela 50-50. I don't know who did it, but I was so glad that part of the union kind of got started. And then and then Andy said, well, let's go to a commercial break. So they went to a commercial break. And then when they came back from the commercial break, Andy said, you know, Andy said, Andy said, Angela, he said, Angela, do you agree with this fan? Because this fan said that he do agree with Phaedra that you don't look nothing like your age. You look older. She said, Andy, I am 44. She said, Andy, here's my proof to show it. She had another thing in the phone. She pulled out the phone. It was a birth certificate. And you said, ooh, you can see the baby. You can see the baby. You can see the baby through at the back and stuff. And he said, well, and they said, what did it say, Andy? What did it say? They blurred out all that stuff and they said, well, Angela was born in 1981. So she is 44 years old. I was saying, yeah. Anybody that was born in the early 80s in their 40s now. And so and so and so and so and so she said, yeah, Faith, you tell me how it's Bridget. Well, I thought so. And I thought it was like a when you and then Angela said, well, from your throwback pictures, you look kind of old too, Faith. You look kind of old too. And next thing you know, and he said, okay. And he said, Shamea, you start out with your big birthday party, showing your rich, affluent life, everything you did, a little package. And baby looks could kill Portia, had her mouth and her eyes rolled, her mouth turned. It was just like it was irking her that Andy was giving Shamia, such a great introduction. And then he said, well, all was not good. I said, you finally got your peach because after being a friend of so long, the things were not so rosy and so good. That's all for the sweet thing. He said, yeah. He said, you and Portia started out the season real good. He said, but what happened? And then so before Shamia could say anything out of her mouth, here comes Portia. What happened? She went behind my back talking about me to these other ladies, especially the new girls, Kelly, and especially new girls, Kelly and Britt. And so and so, Shamea said, well, she said, well, the girls made a bigger deal out of it than it was, and stuff like that. And then, and then Angela chimed in and said, no, I'm not going to let you do that, Shamea. You came and talked to me and Drew in that restaurant. You told me and Drew that you didn't like the way, Porsha was treating you and Porsha was doing you and stuff, and you want to try to put on us and stuff like that. And then so, and then so, and then so Kel said, well, you did say a little bit something to me about that Shamil. And so I did the same thing that Angela and Drew told you that maybe you should tell Portia stuff that you tell her. She said, well, I didn't want to make no big deal out of it. I didn't want to make no big deal out of it. I didn't want to make no big. She said, and the answer said, but if it's not a big deal, why you was talking about you what? You also brought, and then that's what Portia said, yeah. And she also brought that and go to her wedding. And she said that on one of these interviews, I do much more interviews than she do, and I never go back and talk about Shamia like that. And Shamia said, well, you did the first ceremony that we had in the United States. That ceremony was kind of like a rehearsal ceremony. But the one I really had, you said you couldn't come because you couldn't fly because you were sick. And boy said, well, I was sick and I did have something going on and stuff like that. Let me pause this video and get some water. And then Shamia said, well, you didn't. She said, I got proof. And Portia said, see here, Andy's in my phone. She was showing Andy some stuff. Andy passed it over, kind of looked around, then gave it to Shamia. Shamia. You see, I was at a wedding. I might not have been at the one that she wanted me to, but I was at that wedding. And Shamia kept saying there wasn't no wedding. There was like a wedding rehearsal and all that kind of stuff. She said, well, I did come. You had two weddings. She said, no. You said, Shamia, you said on the Breakfast Club and other radio show that you only had one wedding. I can tell you had two weddings, and I just didn't go to the second one. I went to the first one, and they kept going back and forth. And then Andy said, "Wait a minute, hold it." He said, he said, he said, Portia, do you think that Britt showed you and Cynthia those texts when she invited you over to show you to be friends or be messed or be malicious? She said, well, I think she showed it to try to get back and be messy. But what is the stuff that she showed me, it wasn't from my stylist or my friend. It was from my therapist, some of the personal stuff that nobody should be told about. And Shamia shouldn't have said that. And he said, oh, and he said, wait a minute. He said, and she said, well, I really can't speak for Britt, but I'm saying this is what I'm going by, what I'm thinking. And then Andy said, wait, hold a minute. He said, he said, he said, Britt is not here, and I'm gonna explain why Britt is not here, but also Kenya put out something on Instagram and so did Britt watching him come to the reunion. So he said, Kenya Moore said that she's sorry to the ladies of RHO. She's sorry. She truly apologized to the team, to the network, to everybody involved. Sincerely, Kenya Moore. I'm paraphrasing. He said, and then Britt explained why she couldn't come to the union. She said with all the stuff she had dealt with the full season, it drained her mentally and physically, and she had to go through therapy. Like I said, I'm paraphrasing. She had to go through therapy, and she thought that that wouldn't be a good idea. Sign Britt. So he said that's why when, and then so and then so Phaedra said, I wish that she would have come. I wish that she would have felt enough to call me, of course, or somebody. And he said, did she call you, Portia? Portia said she called me the day before, and I talked to her. She mentioned nothing to me about she wasn't coming to the reunion. I asked her was her husband coming, and she said, yeah, Michael's gonna be there. And so, and so he said, well, Kelly, what do you think? She said, well, Vic, she said, Vic always want to play the victim and then be the villain at the same time. You can't be both of them. I said, Kelly, you such a flip flopper, just like Shamea. You and Shamea did do that, and then Porsha jumped up and said, "Well, alliances were started." He said, "What alliances?" She said, "Yeah, before the thing started, it was alliances. Alliances was gonna be Shamea, Kelly, and Britt and stuff like that." And then Shamia chimed in and said, "You supposed to be a part of the line too." She said, "No, I wasn't. I didn't know it, but I heard about it." And the Andrew said, "Y'all didn't include me. Y'all didn't include me in the allegiance." And then Andy and Portia said, "It's a line." She said, "Well." She said, "Well, no." She said, "It was like that." And then Portia say alliance tears up groups and stuff. And I say it sure do, Portia, because every time y'all being alive, and it was like it was alive because it was like all y'all was against Drew, except for Angela really, because Cynthia was flip flopping back and forth, and so and so after that part, they came back and she said, and he said, "Angela, I'm gonna read another fan question." He said, "This fan is saying, do you really think Drew has been a real good friend to you like you've been to her?" And she said, "No, not really. I thought Drew should have been there a little bit more for me and stuff." And Drew said, "Huh, what? I was there for you." She said, I moved with you to the investigation and said I helped you with that." And then Portia said, "Yeah, you was there, but you left." And Andy said, "Yeah, they said you were singing hymns in the confessional." And they showed that. And she said, "Yeah." He said, "Angela, if you feel any kind of way that I was not there for you like I wanted to because I was going through my stuff, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." And then she apologized. And here comes Shamea chiming in. "Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. All y'all tried to tell me and the Porsche relationship apart, but look what Drew was doing to what you call him. Drew said, 'Well, I just apologized to her. What's the problem now?' And then so Shamia chimed in, 'You always lying. You said, what did I lie about this time?' And then so she said, 'You lied about that purse, that leaving the purse.' And she said, 'No, I didn't. I do have a leaving the purse.' She said, 'Nah, you got one of these kind of purses like here. What you call it?' And then so Portia said, she said, 'I don't want that purse.' She said, 'Give it back.' And Portia said, 'Give me that purse.' And then Andy said, 'Give her that purse.' And then Shamia told me, 'Let's see what's gonna happen after this.' And so she brought the Porsche, and then Andy pulled up the clip where she did do a purse, and also pulled up the clip that was on Twitter where the woman who makes the purse said that was one of their brands of the purses and stuff. And so Drew said, 'Did I lie? Did I lie? Did I lie?' And he said, 'No, I didn't lie.' And then so, and then so, and then so Portia said, 'Yeah, you can't be blaming her about what happened with our relationship. So our relationship was kind of shaky and stuff like that.' And she said, 'Yeah, your mama said some stuff about my mama.' And then Shamia said, 'Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we fell out. But there was some other stuff that happened way before that.' And Andy said, 'What other stuff?' She said, 'Well, I can't tell her. I can't tell her. I can't tell her which car.' And they kept arguing back and forth, and that was the end of episode 19 with Union Part 2. Overall, without the exception of the part about Drew, this was really boring. And to me, they stayed too long on Angela and Phaedra stuff and stuff. I guess they had kind of spread it out because they was expecting the big reveal with Kenya and with Kenya and Britt, and both of them were not there. And Britt chose not to be there, like you said. In Kenya, they weren't gonna let Kenya be there because of legal reasons. But anyway, like I said, this was okay. Reunion 1 to me was better than 2, and I'll see about 3. That's all I have for this video. This is A. Wesley. That ain't even tells it like a TI is. I am out.